Seawalls in Brevard County. Here's what's actually going on and what nobody tells you before you buy waterfront property on the Space Coast. Here's what we're covering today. The story is Brevard County is quietly in the middle of a seawall crisis. Aging walls, a stressed lagoon, and a county that is actively steering away from traditional seawalls. And you need to know why that matters to your property. Here's 3 pieces of advice. 1. Inspect before you buy. A seawall that looks fine on the surface can silently be falling underneath, and that's a repair bill that could have 6 figures. 2. Know your alternatives. The county actually prefers living shorelines over seawalls now. There may be grant money available to help you pay for one. 3. Never skip the permit. Unpermitted seawall work will come back to bite you at the closing table. Now let's get into all of it, but first, let me introduce myself. I'm Carrie Liotta as Space Coast Realtor, and I help people buy and sell homes right here in Brevard County, Florida. And I'm passionate about making sure you actually understand what you're getting into with waterfront property on the Space Coast. I also run a private Facebook group called Moving to Brevard County, Florida. It's full of locals and people relocating here who ask questions, share experiences, and talk about life in this community. Just scan the QR code on the screen right now to join us. Whether you already live here or you're thinking about making the move, this group is for you. Okay, so let's talk seawalls. Here's my opinion, and I say this as someone who works in this market every day. Seawalls are one of the most underestimated issues in Brevard County real estate right now. Buyers get excited about the water view, the dock, the lifestyle, and they completely overlook the wall holding it together. So let me tell you what's actually happening. Brevard County sits along the Indian River Lagoon, 156 miles of estuary that runs right through the heart of the Space Coast. It's one of the most biologically diverse estuaries in North America. Manatee, dolphins, seagrass, thousands of species. It's genuinely spectacular, and it is why people want to live here. But the lagoon is struggling. Decades of pollution, runoff, nutrient overload, it has taken a serious toll. And here's the part that surprises people. Traditional seawalls are part of that problem. Here's how. A vertical seawall doesn't absorb wave energy, it reflects it. That reflected energy actually increases erosion at the base of the wall and on neighboring properties. Seawalls also block the natural movement of the sand and sediment, and they eliminate the intertidal zone, the narrow strip of the shoreline between the high and low where the mangroves grow. Horseshoe crabs nest and oysters filter the water. A vertical concrete wall wipes all of that out. Brevard County's own natural resources director has been pretty blunt about it. Seawalls are the easy way to stabilize a shoreline, but they are not good for wildlife, not good for water clarity, and not good for the lagoon. And here's the thing. The county is putting real money behind the position. In 2024, they kicked off a $4.2 million living shoreline project at Titusville Causeway, which had eroded so badly that a shoreline residents remember stretching 80 feet into the lagoon is now barely a sliver. That project bringing in over 4,000 cubic yards of sand, planting native vegetation, and installing 650 wave attenuation devices off shoreline that function like an artificial reef. They even drop 1 million baby clams via drone to help filter the water. That's the direction this county is heading, and as a realtor, my opinion is this. The buyers who understand that shift are going to make smarter decisions than the ones who don't. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Get a seawall inspection before you buy a waterfront property in Brevard County. Here's what scares me about this. A seawall can look perfectly fine from the surface, no cracks, caps look solid, wall is standing straight, and underneath the tieback rods that anchors the whole thing are completely rusted through. The fill behind the wall is washing out. You're weeks away from a failure, and you never know it just by looking at it. A licensed marine contractor can assess the actual structural integrity of the wall. This is not something your standard home inspector covers. You need someone who specifically knows marine construction. And if a seawall does fail, you are looking at a replacement cost of $700 to $1,200 per linear foot, sometimes more. A typical 80 to 100 foot residential seawall can run between $60,000 and $100,000 to replace it, and that's not a surprise you want after closing. My advice, make the inspection a condition of your offer. Use what you find to negotiate, and if the seller can't tell you when the seawall was last inspected or repaired, that's a red flag. Advice number 2, know your alternatives to a traditional seawall because the county actually prefers them and there may be money available to help you pay for one. If you own waterfront property and your seawall is aging, you don't necessarily have to replace it with another vertical concrete or vinyl wall. The options include riprap, a sloped arrangement of rocks along the shoreline. It's more wildlife friendly than a vertical wall, and it's considered a middle ground option that the county views much more favorably. Living shorelines, the full nature-based approach. Native plants, oyster beds, wave attenuation structures, more ecological benefit, often less expensive up front than a new seawall, and potentially eligible for funding through the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program, a half-cent sale tax that Brevard voters approved in 2016 that is expected to generate over $586 million for lagoon restoration projects. Even if you ultimately end up with a vinyl seawall because your situation requires it, you should at least have the conversation about alternatives. A good marine contractor will walk you through what makes sense for your specific property, your water exposure, and your budget. Advice number 3, always pull the permit. Always. I've seen deals fall apart or get seriously complicated because a previous owner did seawall work without a permit. Here in Brevard County, seawall installation and replacement requires a residential marine construction permit from the county. On top of that, depending on your project, you may need an environmental resource permit from the Florida DEP and, in some cases, involvement from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There are setback rules too. Brevard County Code prohibits construction within 10 feet of any seawall or bulkhead. Miss that and you've got a zoning violation sitting on your property. Now, some restoration work is exempt from the DEP permitting. If you're repairing a wall that is functional, rebuilding it in the same location, and you're not in an aquatic preserve or manatee sanctuary. But even then, you still need your local county permit. The bottom line is, if you're hiring a contractor and they tell you you don't need a permit, get a second opinion. And if you're buying a home where seawall work was done, ask to see the permit. It should be on record. Permitted work protects your investment. Unpermitted work is a liability. Seawalls on the Space Coast is a bigger topic than most people expect. My takeaway for you: the story is that Brevard County is shifting away from traditional seawalls towards a more ecological approach, and that is going to affect waterfront property values and what you can build. Inspect before you buy, know your alternatives, and never skip the permit. If you've got questions about waterfront property or anything about living on the Space Coast, come join my private Facebook group called Moving to Brevard County, Florida. Scan the QR code on the screen. It's locals, it's people relocating here, it's real conversations about real life in this community. I'm in there too, so drop your questions and I'll see them. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.